years of scuba diving. Like me, he was also a gen of the Focolare movement. So without further ado, it is my absolute pleasure to welcome our esteemed speaker, Mr. Ricky Tantoco.
Okay.
Bear with us for a moment here. Okay.
Thank you for that introduction, Val. Before I begin my message this afternoon, I would like to just greet His Excellency Bishop Pablo Ambo David, the acting president of the Catholic Bishops' Conference of the Philippines. I would also like to greet the chairman of the following Episcopal Commissions for the Year of Dialogue 2020. His Excellency Archbishop Angelito Lampon for Ecumenical Affairs, His Excellency Edwin de la Peña for Interreligious Dialogue, and His Excellency Bishop Valentin Dimok for Indigenous Peoples. Please give me just a moment to adjust my, my screen settings. Okay. My topic for discussion this afternoon is why sustainability is no longer enough, the call to be regenerative. My discussion will be divided into 4 parts. First, I will do a brief introduction. Then I will talk about our world in crisis, how climate change amplifies inequality. Then I will raise a call to action, which is all about making tough choices. And finally, I will talk about regenerative thinking and give some concrete examples. Let me start with my introduction. For over 40 years, our company, Energy Development Corporation, or EDC, has been rather quietly generating power from geothermal resources. EDC was born out of the oil crisis of the 1970s and our government's desire for energy independence. We generate close to 1,500 megawatts of purely renewable energy, 1,205 megawatts of which is baseload geothermal. As the Philippines' premier renewable energy company and the world's largest integrated geothermal power producer, we take pride in providing the country an essential service that is reliable and socially and environmentally responsible. But today's talk is not about our business. It is about our realizations over the years of generating 100% clean and renewable energy. Realizations that shouldn't be kept quiet and hushed. Not anymore. We have a responsibility to our planet and to humanity, and we have chosen to take a stand. This stance imposes the duty on us to use our voice to send a distress call to as many as possible, as many people, as many organizations as possible, because we simply are running out of time. Let me now move on to the second part of my discussion. Our world is in crisis and how climate change amplifies inequality and injustice. Our world is in trouble. Yes, we live in quite dystopian times, characterized by the most unprecedented disruption in generations. And while COVID has gotten everyone's attention, climate change is the issue that will hit us like a tsunami. It actually already has begun. And while this pandemic has paralyzed most activity, it is but a sneak peek of the geologic scale changes that we have been seeing in record-breaking temperatures, forest fires, severe drought, the melting of our cryospheres, or our sources of ice. These events have been hitting our planet with increasing intensity, regularity, and consistency every single year now. We are in a climate crisis, and we are mortgaging the future of our children if we do not take resolute action to alter the course we are on. Here is a video that shows our planet's warming temperatures since the 1880s. Pay close attention to the color. The redder the color, the greater the degree of warming on our planet. So that is the world we are living in today. And just as COVID-19 started wreaking havoc around the world in February of this year, a record high temperature of 20.75 degrees Celsius was set in the Antarctic. In June this year, just a couple of months ago, the Arctic also broke historic records with a record high temperature of 38 degrees Celsius. These records alone conceal a reality. The Antarctic contains 55 meters of sea level rise, while the Arctic contains 8 meters of sea level rise. Yes, these impacts of sea level rise will take time, but their consequences will be immense, particularly for the 200 million people that live on the shorelines today. The incessant rise in the world's carbon emissions has put us on a trajectory of a global temperature rise of between 3.7 to 4.8 degrees Celsius by the year 2100. That is the definition of an unlivable planet. Let's look at what's happening today in the Southern Hemisphere, in Australia, with a temperature rise of just 1 degree. From late 2019 to early 2020, wildfires ravaged Australia with over 18 million hectares of land burned, or 3 billion animals killed or displaced. If you want to gain some perspective, 18.7 million hectares of area that burned in one fire season is equivalent to 63% of the land mass of the Philippines. The koalas, which are already classified as vulnerable to extinction, lost another 30% of its population in the last 12 months. Much of the water used to douse the fires were salt water from the ocean, and long-term, this will make it significantly more challenging for forest and agriculture crops to regrow. If you spend a few minutes, a minute to read a quote from Professor David Bowman, one of the top bushfire experts in Australia. He said this on September 1 of this year: "I would not rule out a big fire season ahead. That is diabolically depressing, but when you see what is happening in California, Europe, and elsewhere, we are just part of a global nightmare." So these events are identical to what is happening now in the Northern Hemisphere across California and Oregon. Northern California today is in the middle of a 20-year mega drought. Pacific Gas and Electric Company, one of the most admired companies, and less than 2 years ago, worth $34 billion US, filed for bankruptcy on January 29, 2019, due to its role in starting the wildfires in 2017 and 2018 that cost $25 billion in liabilities. These liabilities have been driven by forest fires. Prior to that, PG&E considered its fire risk. This was based on a gas explosion that they had in San Diego, and their risk management framework in 2012 assessed their maximum probable loss from any fire to be $1 billion. And that is what they got insurance for. You know, 2020 is the 9th straight year where the El Diablo winds have come. These are the very hot desert winds that blow from east to west. In prior years, the average was 7 years of rain and snow for every 1 year of El Diablo winds. And now it's become a regular occurrence. The headline of the Associated Press News tells us to expect a worse future. What's happening now is what climate scientists were talking about just a decade ago. But then, 10 years ago in 2010, the magnitude of what's occurring today was hard to fathom. We see this as a global trend. The United States is experiencing climate-related disasters with losses totaling $319 billion in 2017, a new record exceeding a previous record of $226 billion set in 2005. A German philosopher, Arthur Schopenhauer, once said, "All truth passes through three stages. First, it is ridiculed. Second, it is violently opposed. And third, it is accepted as self-evident." Some around the world still doubt climate change, probably even here in the Philippines. But let me now share with you what is going on closer to home and closer to our company. The same phenomenon is happening in our country. In the first 2 months of 2019, a reported 140,000 hectares of land, including forest, was lost to the fire in the Cordillera alone. When it's dry, it's really dry. And when it's wet, it gets really wet and really windy. Super typhoons have been hitting us more regularly in the last few years. The strongest and most devastating of which was Typhoon Yolanda in the year 2013. Our facilities in EDC were severely damaged. Our communities were also ravaged. I recall visiting our community in Barangay Limao in Cananga, Leyte, and their homes were totally flattened. That was just in 2013. Forwarding to 2017, Typhoon Orduha hit our sites in Leyte, where it lingered for 4 days, dumping a total of 1,400 millimeters of rain. That's 1.4 meters of rain. I'm 6 feet tall, and imagine in 4 days, water till about my chest rained in the same area, nonstop. As a result of all this, our insurance claims have gone up roughly on an annual basis 24 times in the last 9 years. All this has made us realize that those strong typhoons, increasing in frequency and magnifying in intensity, will not be the last. So it's incumbent on us to climate-proof our facilities, to keep our employees, our contractors, and our guests safe. Several years ago, 13 of our contractors died when a landslide struck our work site. We were puzzled because we had close to 9 straight days of sunshine. We could have left it at that and said, you know, this is a freak event and there's nothing we can do. But we decided not to do that. We quickly moved to deploy technology and sensors, the same ones used by the European and railway systems. Deep soil moisture meters, tilt meters, piezometers, accelerometers that measure earthquakes, microseismic earthquake monitors that measure the very small movements in the earth, met or weather stations, and others. We also installed our own WiMAX system. This is our own private wireless system over our entire site of thousands and thousands of hectares. That system now collects data and houses everything in our very own natural hazard dashboard. This system learns and gets better the more data it ingests into its models. And so far, so good. Thanks to this system, we have saved lives on 3 separate occasions already. The last incident took place when our NatHaz system sounded the alarm on a perfectly sunny day. It had rained 3 days prior to the day when the alarms went off. But we listened to the model, we listened to the alarms, and we quickly pulled out all our contractors and our employees from that work area. And less than 48 hours later, a landslide occurred. So thanks to this system, lives were saved. In 2019, the Philippines topped the Informed Global Risk Index for hazards. But the vulnerability of our communities, most especially the poor, comes not only from the presence of hazards, but instead from the combination of three things. Number one, the hazard itself. Number two, our poor institutional bandwidth to respond to large-scale disasters. And number three, our equally poor infrastructure. These three combined is what makes us, and the poor Filipinos in particular, most vulnerable. We all know that the most impacted each time a disaster strikes are those who experience destruction but do not have the resources to get back on their feet again. Let me discuss one of the pernicious effects of climate change. First, a disaster strikes. The poor lose their homes, they lose their crops, they lose their livestock. They also do not have the funds needed to build back, or much less build back better. So the focus shifts to food and shelter, or to medicines. Education is what is sacrificed. The great equalizer is sacrificed, right? And education of their kids stop. And in the Philippines, our data shows that college graduates earn 30% more than those who do not have a college degree at the beginning of their career, right? And this just widens over time. And on top of that, only 23% finish college. And secondly, families without a college degree, 42% of them are in abject poverty, while families with one college graduate experience 2% poverty, a reduction of 42% with the presence of a college degree that is sacrificed quite often because of these disasters. Over time, this pattern is repeated and repeated. Suffering is amplified in the short term, while inequality is multiplied in the long term. This terrible feedback loop is called climate injustice. Those generating the most carbon that causes climate change are the ones that are least impacted by it. And those that do not even have access to carbon generating goods and services are the ones that are ravaged time and time again. Let me now move on to my call to action, which is about making tough choices. Truth be told, as late as 2015, we were actually looking for a site where we could build our first ever coal-fired power plant. Even after Yolanda, it took time to crystallize in our hearts and minds that getting into coal was the wrong thing to do. Our chairman, Federico Lopez, or Picky Lopez as we call him, after much internal debate with his team, made the bold and visionary decision to say no to coal in 2016. And I quote from him. This was mentioned in our annual stockholders meeting. Let me state unequivocally and for the record that FPH and its subsidiaries will not build, develop, or invest in any coal-fired power plant. That was the moment we woke up and we decided to say goodbye to a large pot of gold by sticking to cleaner forms of energy. Our sustainability reporting journey actually reflects how we have evolved as we learned more and more about the climate crisis and its impact on the poor. We went beyond financial reporting and embarked on triple bottom line reporting in 2010 to disclose how we were already taking care of our forest and the communities around us way before sustainability became a buzzword. However, the feel-good covers of our earlier annual reports failed to show the deteriorating state of our planet. It was only in 2016 when we decided to use our reports to send a message to our stakeholders in order to address the climate crisis. From left to right, if you look at the covers of our annual reports, in 2016, the call to action was carbon emissions are threatening our world, but together we can tap our Earth's clean energy. 2017 is, I think, the most visceral. It's the punch in the stomach cover with a human burning, right? And the message is very simple. We are running out of time. 2018, we showed dead agriculture. And the caption is, due to climate change, only hell is hotter than summer. And in 2019, our most recent annual report, we decided to show an actual satellite picture taken of Australia in the middle of the forest fires, where we call others to join in our mission of forging collaborative pathways for a decarbonized and regenerative future. With very little time left to keep the warming of our planet within the 1.5 degrees Celsius agreed to in COP21, this decade, this next 10 years we are on that started with a volcanic explosion and COVID, will critically determine whether we succeed or not. To succeed, humanity needs to reduce carbon emissions by 6% every year until we achieve net zero emissions by the year 2050. Our emissions should peak in 2030 or sooner, then go on a radical decline after that. For context in your perspective, these lockdowns today and the passenger transport restrictions resulting from the pandemic are expected to bring emissions this year down by about 8%, which actually means that we need a COVID scale catastrophe every year until 2050 just to achieve the 1.5 degrees Celsius target. At the heart of the crisis we are on is the all too common mindset that man is apart from and not a part of nature. That nature is here at our disposal. That nature is here for us to use and abuse. That nature is here just to serve our wants and needs. Today, our global population of 7.8 human beings is violating the law of limits. Our lack of respect for nature is demanding way too much from it. And as a result, we consume an estimated 1.75 Earths per year. That's a full 75% more resources than our planet's ability to replenish. According to the Global Footprint Network, US lifestyles consume an average of 5 Earths. Ironically, many others on the planet mistakenly aspire to attain that. So the pattern of growth and the definition of success are both broken and have left too many behind. And that pattern is this: let's just pay minimum wages to those who serve to produce the goods and services, to those who consume more, much, much more than what they actually need. Clearly, global economic growth brought about by free market capitalism as currently practiced has worsened inequality. It has led to a climate catastrophe as it promoted greed, the accumulation of things, and the mindless use of our resources. This editorial cartoon by Tom Toro of the New York Times says it all. Against the background of total destruction, a business person, I suppose, in his tattered suit and his silk tie tells children, yes, the planet got destroyed, but for a beautiful moment in time, we created a lot of value for shareholders. Sustaining the path we are on, which seeks only to do less harm, is no longer good enough. We need to go beyond tick the box sustainability and tick the box CSR that is meant to placate our investors. Everyone, from individuals to businesses to government, needs to transform to a model of regenerative development. So what is regeneration, regenerative thinking? What does it actually mean, and how can we achieve it? For us in the Lopez Group, which EDC is proud to be a part of, It is about aligning our business, our resources, and our capabilities to fulfill a mission. And that is to elevate everything that we touch. Let me define the word everything for you. In our definition, regeneration includes our employees, our community, our environment, our customers, our employees, and our partners. All five need to benefit from the positive impact of our decisions and our actions. While our investors are important, regenerative thinking demands that we look at business from a wider lens than just profitability. This year, we crystallized our mission at the Lopez Group of companies, including EDC, and that is let me repeat that. I think the host accidentally muted me. To forge collaborative pathways for a decarbonized and regenerative future. It is a deliberately high bar, and we are nothing short of humbled by it. But we expect this short 10-word phrase to be the beacon that guides us through this turbulent decade and beyond. We've also put into words our purpose, etching out the role we see for ourselves in the coming years with greater clarity. Purpose is the reason for which we are doing what we do. Right? Allow me to read to you our purpose very briefly in the slides that follow. We recognize that our planet's life support systems and social institutions are now at a breaking point. Unbridled consumption and primacy of bottom line growth are at the roots of this climate crisis. Our alienation from nature and the profound social and economic divisions have become existential threats to humanity today. Overcoming all of these challenges will require paradigm shifts in the way we think, live, and do business. It is now clear that pursuing sustainability that seeks only to do less harm is no longer good enough. Instead, we need to create symbiotic, mutually beneficial relationships with nature and society that benefit more than just shareholders. Businesses today must urgently become a regenerative force that elevates everything that they touch. Customers, employees, suppliers, contractors, the environment, communities, and investors. This transformation cannot be done by entities working alone. We are mindful that we exist within highly diverse and nested systems, and that we must all play unique, reciprocal, and synchronized roles in a world that needs to be healed. Our collective success will be measured by how quickly we can decouple economic and social prosperity from the destruction of our planet's life support systems. We choose this path because it is the only way to a destination where everyone has the opportunity to thrive and prosper on a healthy planet. We choose this path because we believe it is the only way to create lasting value for all stakeholders and not just shareholders. We choose this path because it is inseparable from the Lopez values that have and always will define us. Let me walk you through some concrete examples of what regeneration means. But let me state for the record before I begin that EDC and the rest of the Lopez Group are not there yet. I'm actually not sure if anyone is. We have not reached the state of regeneration that we need to be in, but we would like to believe that we are a work in progress. So let me talk about being regenerative towards our employees. We have always strived to foster a healthy and positive working environment in EDC. But it was during this pandemic that management was truly able to show its genuine familiar care, or what we call in Filipino, pampamilyang malasakit, while we are requiring most of our colleagues to work from home. We formed skeletal workforces that expertly operate our power plants, and we are providing them with good sleeping quarters, appetizing food, and stable internet, so they can always get in touch with their loved ones while working on site. But we went beyond the obvious to try and elevate our colleagues, the entire company. We repurposed our benefits. We delivered to their doorsteps masks at the very beginning of the pandemic. We also delivered to everyone's homes comfortable office furniture and equipment, computers and their monitors. We also go grocery shopping for the families of those who are on duty. We do not want them to worry about the basics while they are taking care of running our power plants. We even offered to vaccinate all employees and their families against flu and pneumonia to increase everyone's chances of survival during this pandemic. Majority of our employees said yes to this offer. We are providing access to counseling services for those who need to take care of their mental health. We also launched a special interest development program paid for by the company that pays for learning and hobbies such as guitar playing, karate, and photography lessons to keep everyone whole. We also agreed our meeting norms in this new normal, and today we welcome children into our meetings. So instead of our employees feeling embarrassed when a child pops into a meeting, they know that we embrace their children and that we thank them for allowing our office to invade their home. We also have an absolute rule of respecting family meals. So at 12 noon and then at 6 p.m., all, and I mean 100% of all EDC meetings have to stop. Our employee engagement score last year before the pandemic already reached an all-time high for EDC of 91%. This is already 3% higher than the top scores around the globe measured by our international HR consultants. Recently, in August, we conducted a pulse survey to see how we are doing. And our scores reached even newer highs in all the categories that are known to drive employee engagement. I suspect the manner in which we care for our employees, which is nothing short of treating everyone as family, is driving these amazing engagement levels. Genuine care is also extended to our partner communities. Each time they are hit by a natural catastrophe, and even more so during this pandemic. Apart from providing food and medical supplies to medical frontliners and our communities, we also sent many container vans that they could use as quarantine facilities and sleeping quarters for the medical staff on duty. We are likewise helping our communities put up their first PCR testing centers to help them stem the transmission of COVID-19 in the area. From 1 to 10 days of waiting for the PCR test results to be released from the nearest testing center, which was Cebu for our Dumaguete office and Davao for our Kidapawan office, our communities will soon be able to get the results in just 1 to 3 days. Beyond this pandemic, we invest heavily in education programs, knowing that education is the great equalizer. On the left is our CCAT program, where very promising students are taken under our wing and mentored by our employees from high school until they get into the UP college system. Once they are there in UP, we support their expenses, but more importantly than the funding, our employees continue to mentor them to success. On the right is our KITEC program from the Kananga Institute of Technology, where We take in around 150 kids every year in our terrific facilities. For many of the kids, this is most likely their first time to eat meat or fish 3 times a day. They live full-time in our dorms and learn everything from martial arts to jungle survival to ballroom dancing. We even built a state-of-the-art speech lab to help them learn speak English so that they too can become more global citizens. But most of all, while under our care, the kids learn self-discipline and they begin to gain self-confidence, the kind of self-confidence that comes only with hard effort and dedication. To date, we already have over 1,000 graduates from our KaiTech Technical Vocational School in Cananga, Leyte. The school has maintained a perfect 100% passing rate in all national certification exams given by TESTA. About 96% of them are gainfully employed. But what makes us really proud is that 360 graduates are already giving back to KaiTech to help support its current scholars. Let me now move on to talking about our efforts to be regenerative towards the environment. Caring for the environment has always been at the top of our list of priorities, admittedly, because it helps sustain our geothermal business. Lush forests help to capture rainfall, and the rainfall recharges our steam resource. But about 10 years ago, we decided to take our tree planting efforts to the next level by committing to bring back to abundance 96 of our most endangered Philippine native tree species through our Binhi Greening Legacy Program. Let me pause here to show you a video of the Binhi program.
We almost lost a tree species, only found in the Philippines. 2 were left in the whole of the country, and 1 was cut down.
Now we've come to this remote site, and this is the perfect place to start the story of Binhi, a one-of-a-kind reforestation project, and the only one of its kind here in the Philippines. This is the program that saved these tree species.
Binhi began as a CSR program for the Energy Development Corporation. Binhi is one of the largest corporate-led greening programs in the Philippines.
Part of their commitment, restoring forest covers wherever they may operate and beyond. So they came up with the Binhi program. But what's so special about this program? It focuses on premium native trees. Why? This is because these trees are well adapted to our forests and thrive better. They also do not harm the existing life around them.
Binhi rescued the first 96 most endangered trees, making sure we've got a bank of seeds. With these, our endangered native trees now have a chance.
Binhi created an arboretum and also nurseries like this to nurture seedlings to life. Binhi works because of partnerships it has developed with local communities across project sites.
Binhi established alliances with partner communities, gave them livelihood programs so they can make a living from the trees themselves.
The first phase is done, but Binhi is an evolving project, so we are now in Binhi 2.0. We expand our roles by teaching how to build, taking care of business, and increasing the technical expertise in both planting and farming. What's more is we want Binhi to become a focal point for education. spread more and more word when it comes to environmental activities, when it comes to communities, civic groups, local media, private corporations, and various other organizations, that the environment needs our help, and we've got just the project to do so. Binhi has gotten worldwide attention, and collaborations have already begun.
Binhi is proud to be a partner of DENR and BGCI IUCN. Look around you. There's plenty of land still to cover. Many more tree species to rescue, track, and nurse back to health. Are you in? Because I'm in. Partner with Binhi.
So Binhi seeks to green our country in a manner that preserves our national patrimony and pride. So far, close to 10,000 hectares of degraded and open forests and watersheds have been replanted with endangered indigenous tree species and fruit-bearing trees. Having geothermal reservations that occupy close to 1% of the total landmass of the Philippines made us realize that we need to partner. So we formed farmers and community associations, and we inculcated in them the value of environmental stewardship as we enable them to help take care of our forests. We also incentivize them and help them transform into our green warriors. Our Baslay Farmers Association in Negros Oriental tells the successful story of transformation from slash and burn farmers or caingeros to Binhi green entrepreneurs. It took a while before its members actually felt the fruits of their labor. But thanks to the resoluteness of our community partnerships teams, we now have a generation of coffee entrepreneurs. The Baslay coffee produce has been described by DTI as one of the best coffee beans in the country. From planting and growing coffee beans, they have recently put up their own coffee shop in their own backyard where tourists and backpackers frequent. They have become one of the most award-winning farmer communities in the country. Their success has been documented by the University of Asia and the Pacific's Center for Social Responsibility as a model for development and shared with various universities, colleges, and private companies. Let me now talk about being regenerative and elevating our partners. The roots that Binhi has grown doesn't end there. In 2019, EDC was selected by the International Union for the Conservation of Nature, or IUCN, to be their first and only local partner in the Philippines as a result of our efforts to update the status of 35 of our 96 flagship threatened native tree species. The IUCN's Secretariat, Botanic Gardens Conservation International, or BGCI, is the world's largest plant conservation network, and they selected us to be a part of their global tree assessment program. They needed help to update the status of 800 Philippine endemic trees. And to date, EDC has worked with them to assess 200 species. And because of our work, the IUCN has updated and published more about 89 species in the red list. The healthy ecosystem that Binhi has sustained has a further purpose. You see, we've applied systems thinking to hit many regenerative targets with a strong partnership with UP Diliman Institute of Biology and the UP Los Baños College of Forestry and Natural Resources. 10 years ago, we launched what we call the Biodiversity Conservation and Monitoring Program, or BCMP. Right? We were thinking long and hard about what we could do better at protecting and reforesting our watersheds. Soon the discussion widened to, what if we use our sites as laboratories for fieldwork for budding and aspiring scientists? Then we asked, what if we provide research opportunities so more students will want to become biologists, botanists, and foresters? Over time, we have discovered several new species, and we actually have gleaned many new best practices from Mother Nature, which in turn strengthens both the UP Institute of Biology and the UP College of Forestry and Natural Resources. I'm actually quite excited to be signing our next 5-year Memorandum of Agreement to take our BCMP program forward. We will be signing this in the next 2 weeks. So today, our areas of operation are home to myriads of wildlife species: 291 birds, 43 bats, 25 other mammals, and 46 reptiles and amphibians. Almost half of them are endemic to the Philippines and found nowhere else in the world. What we know, we can appreciate. What we know, we now need to protect. What we don't know about them, we discover. And what we discover, we make sure we share with others. The key BCMP benefits includes, number 1, the creation of national and global biodiversity data over a long time horizon. Number 2, our forests become labs for research. Number 3, our publications enrich general best practice and knowledge. And finally, our partnerships enhance the capabilities of both the academe and our own EDC technical personnel. Another partnership that we are proud of is one with the Philippine Eagle Foundation. In 2012, we adopted a male Philippine eagle and named him Geothermica. He is now on loan to Singapore Jurong Bird Park, along with a female counterpart, some BSIG, as part of an agreement between the DENR and the leading wildlife conservation group, Wildlife Reserves Singapore. This critical project was undertaken to protect the gene pool of our national bird in the event of the avian flu breakout. The most recent addition to the growing biodiversity in our sites is another Philippine eagle aged around 3 to 4 years old. The eagle has been named Makilala Hiraya after Barangay Makilala, the local area where she was rescued, and Hiraya, which means our most fervent hope and dreams, our aspirations. After being treated for her minor injuries this July, Makilala Hiraya was released back into the wild in our Mount Apo National Park Geothermal Reservation, which we police and protect, where the Philippine Eagle Foundation and EDC can now monitor her growth with the help of the GPS tracker on her claw. Releasing and protecting our iconic national bird is important in keeping the wild population thriving in our forests. I'd like to pause here to show you a brief 2-minute video of Makilala's rescue and release. biodiversity conservation and monitoring program allows us to create corridors where both flora and fauna can be propagated and protected. And we are very glad to have long-term partners like the UP Institute of Biology, the UP College of Forestry and Natural Resources, the International Union for the Conservation of Nature, and BGCI, as we take the environment to new heights. Let me now move on to talking briefly about elevating our customers. Our customers are electric cooperatives, distribution utilities, and industry. They are using renewable energy as their source of power because it is affordable, it is reliable, and because it's clean. Even before the start of the lockdown, we have been conducting climate change workshops for them, helping our customers find ways to reduce their own energy consumption and their energy losses. If our customers become more energy efficient, it lowers their business carbon footprint. At the start of this pandemic, we agreed to defer our customers' payments on the orders of the Department of Energy and the Energy Regulatory Commission. We decided to go a little bit beyond that by providing them with a prompt payment discount to help them cushion the blow from their non-paying retail customers. On top of this, we called them to offer help. We ended up donating sacks of rice, face masks, medicines, and vitamins. We have also been conducting webinars for them to share our own business continuity practices with them, something that businesses sorely need at this time. But truth be told, we were worried at the alarming drop in electricity demand. And in addition, we expected zero revenue to come into the company in April of 2020. But we were completely shocked when we ended the month of April with a total of 72% payments. Nothing short of a miracle then. Even if regulation allowed our customers to defer their payments to us, they decided to pay us. And I suspect it is out of a spirit of true partnership. Thankfully, our investors and shareholders share our mission of decarbonization through clean energy. And we look forward to the long journey ahead in a truly regenerative partnership with them. As I was preparing this talk, I realized that some of the things we have been doing were already regenerative. But one of my key insights, in fact, one of our key insights is this. We now know that the issues confronting us are so huge that we need everyone's help. We will only successfully fulfill our mission if we collaborate with others. This is definitely not a beauty contest. It is no longer about which company wins the most sustainability awards. To be totally honest, that's completely irrelevant, right? As our chairman, Piqui Lopez, keeps stressing to all of us, if we find ourselves ahead but alone at the finish line of this massive and humbling undertaking, we will then have failed in our mission. Before I end, allow me to talk about my own personal journey and attempt at being regenerative in the middle of this COVID-19 crisis. I have been working from home, actually from my farm, where this pandemic has worsened poverty in my community. So I tried long and hard to think of a way to help reduce hunger, while at the same time preparing to elevate the environment. So I met with my neighbors and told them that I would buy seedlings of endangered Philippine hardwoods from them at a higher rate than normal. I also agreed with them that I would pay their daily wages. I also asked my neighbors and told them, stand tall, be proud of doing honest work. And today, 38 families have banded together with my family to collect seedlings, pot them, and tend to them by watering them, and do other related work. Thus far, during this pandemic, we have managed to pot over 60,000 seedlings of palusapis, kamagong, yakal, giho, malaruhat, dungon, nara, and other threatened endangered tree species. My dream is to plant 1 million trees in 5 years. In about 2 weeks' time, we will be planting the first 2,000 nara trees that are of the right size and strength to grow on the wild in their own. But more than the raw numbers, my dream is to capacitate my neighbors to ultimately become self-sufficient. In this next photo, you will see kamagong, one of the most endangered endemic Philippine tree species because it is such a beautiful source of hardwood for furniture. From a 1-week-old sapling on the right, to a 2-week-old sapling beside it, to a 1-month-old sapling beside it, to a 2-month-old sapling to the most left, right? Planting, gives me such a deep sense of joy. But these seedlings growing right before my very eyes actually give me something much more than joy. They give me a sense of hope, a sense of being able to move forward in our world that is standing still. I'm just one of the many Lopez Group or EDC employees who try to do their best to live by the Lopez values. Our Lopez values have two unique ones that I haven't seen in a lot of companies. If you look at the values, we have nationalism and social justice in there. So we care deeply about injustice, and we care deeply about our country. But what makes me proudest, though, are the efforts of our fellow employees who have heeded the call to be regenerative in their own unique ways. Let me talk just very quickly about 3 of them. Andre Villan has been with EDC in 19 years. He's one of our most vocal union leaders. But Andre is now providing financial assistance to his parents for their heart medicines. And Andre is also providing financial assistance to his married siblings who recently lost their jobs to the pandemic. Andre is not only the kuya of our labor union because he's the president, he is also the big kuya in their family. Mick Aguirre, who heads the implementation of some of our strategic initiatives, also began to help pay for part of the salaries of the displaced staff from his mother's computer shop, which was forced to shut down during this pandemic. There's an underlined portion in this quote that Mick sent me in an email. He said, EDC in a time of crisis did the exact opposite. We were talking about companies laying off workers. EDC doubled down on its people like me. And because of this, I thought it was just right to help out. Noreen Bautista, our community partnerships head in Negros, was challenged by a group of ladies who saw the many pieces of plastic decor around her home filled with plants. You see, Noreen takes plastic waste and repurposes them into beautiful bottles. And then in those bottles, plastic bottles that she's repurposed, she actually plants. Noreen has always told me that she has a green thumb. But actually, judging from the many pictures she has sent us, it looks like she's learned how to take care of low maintenance plants like cactus. And she says she finds it very therapeutic. You see, all of us on this call and many more on Facebook Live, I think there are 4 or 5 channels on Facebook Live. We all can be regenerative in our own way. The trick is that you think beyond just doing less harm, right? And focus instead on doing more good. As long as you focus on doing more good, there is a chance to be meaningfully regenerative. Let me end this message with a summary of key points as I ask all of you who are on this Season of Creation event to think about the law of limits. Climate change, I'd like to summarize in the following. No? Climate change is upon us and its impacts are getting worse. The great injustice is that the brunt of the impact is borne by the poor. They're not even the ones who generate the carbon, and they don't have the resources to get back on their feet. Hence, sustainability, quote unquote sustainability, as it's currently practiced, is not enough. And why, no? Because we will only be sustaining a path towards destruction and more injustice, right? We therefore need to think regeneratively. And this means that everything we touch must be elevated. Our environment, our employees, our customers, our communities, and our partners. And being regenerative has to begin at home and as early as now, has to be taught to our children. I can't possibly be regenerative for the office and a hypocrite at home. No? We need to live it both in our personal and professional lives. And finally, we need to collaborate. The challenge is just too great now. We need to stop thinking in terms of competition. And if we collaborate, then we can be sure that regeneration will happen at scale. Again, I believe that each and every one of us have a regenerative role to play. And let me end this afternoon's message by sharing a video of no less than our chairman, Picky Lopez, collaborating with my fellow employees. In his own regenerative way, our chairman worked to elevate our fellow employees with this surprise performance of such a meaningful song. Actually, the song's words are appropriate for today. It's perfect to end today's discussion. This video, when it rolled during our town hall last month, surprised all of our employees. Chairman Picky, I hope you're watching, and the rest of the Lopez group now. Please roll the video.
I close my eyes and I can see a world that's waiting up for me that I call my own. Through the dark, through the door, through where no one's been before, but it feels like home. They can say it all sounds crazy. They can say I've lost my mind. I don't care, they call me crazy. We can live in a world that we design. 'Cause every night I lie in bed, the brightest colors fill my head, a million dreams are keeping me awake. Think of what the world could be, a vision of the one I see. A million dreams is all it's gonna take. Oh, a million dreams for the world we're gonna make. Latest colors fill my head. A million dreams are keeping me awake. Think of what the world could be. A vision of what I see. A million dreams is all it's gonna take. A million dreams for the world worth one day. For the world we're gonna make.
Thank you. Just a final word of thanks to the Catholic Bishops' Conference of the Philippines, the Global Catholic Climate Movement, and most especially the Focolare movement that invited me today to be the guest speaker for today's conference. Thank you and good afternoon.
Thank you so much, Sir Ricky. I believe I may speak for everyone here in saying that the urgency of the climate crisis, which you have so effectively communicated in your presentation, has us searching for impactful solutions. But your presentation has pointed out and emphasized really that regenerative thinking is something that we need today because it is inclusive and it is holistic and it's a necessary step towards a healthier earth, not just for humans, but for, well, the rest of creation. So now we'd like to move towards our question and answer aspect of this webinar. Just a couple of reminders on how you can do this and how you can talk to us. So there are several ways. One, you can email us your questions at edc.seasonofcreation@gmail.com. That's edc.seasonofcreation@gmail.com. For our participants in Zoom, some of you have used this already. Feel free to type your questions in the chat. We'll be looking through those as well. For our audience on FB Live, again, send us your thoughts and questions through the comment section of the live stream on the GCCM and EDC pages. Kindly include your email address so we can address your questions after the session, even if we don't get to them in time today. And again, there's the QR code if you know how to use it. And it's on screen right now. If you scan the QR code with your smartphone, you should be able to type in your questions on a Google form, and that should lead it straight back to us. And we'll try to get to as many as we can today. All right, so to get this ball rolling, I'd like to start with this question. So Sir Ricky, your final few slides talked about personal efforts to be regenerative. So for us who are individuals, you know, how do we apply? If you were to give us maybe 3 pieces of concrete advice, where do you advise us to start? Where do you suggest we start in getting this regenerative thinking going?
Yeah, Val, great question. Give me a second. I would start in our homes, right? Be aware that you are the ones setting the tone. Be a source of hope and stability for others, particularly your families and those living with you in the community. Too often we get stressed out right today, by being boxed up and holed up in our homes. Just be aware of your tone. That's the first. Second, I would also recommend that we consume less overall. You know, my sleeping shirts that I use every night, there's 3 of them that I alternate. They are between 26 to 28 years old, right? And they work just fine. So I'd like to, just ask you to ask yourselves, do you really need that next thing before you make that click on Lazada or Shopee? Do you really need it? If not, then forgo. And third, I would take the money that you did not spend on shopping and share it to people who have lost their jobs. So reduce consumption and share. And watch out for your tone at home. Be conscious of how you are at home.
Absolutely right. And I think we have to start this journey, our own personal journey, so to speak, in being able to adopt the regenerative thinking, and that consumption is definitely very powerful. So obviously, regenerative thinking requires, based from just your answer, requires a certain kind of mindset. So this requires an adoption of an awareness of the power of our own consumption. So what do you believe is the role of companies like yours in speeding and scaling up the adoption of regenerative thinking? So not just among individuals, obviously you have your own campaigns and EDC has its own campaign, but among other businesses as well. So how do we speed and scale up this adoption of regenerative thinking?
Right. One of the things that companies have that individuals don't is scale, right? They have that certain size. And scale, it's proven, can drive behavior. So imagine, just imagine, 10 years ago, the Philippines was about 40% renewable energy, and today it's less than 25%. It's gone down with more and more coal-fired power plants being built. So imagine if all the banks said one day, we are no longer gonna finance coal-fired power plants, right? If there's no money, of course, the plants will not get built. As I said, we all have a role to play because we are all part of what I call a nested and heavily interconnected whole. The problem comes in the fact that sometimes we think short term. If I were the owner of a bank, I would say, oh no, if I don't fund this coal plant, how will I earn? How will I earn interest that I can pay my depositors? I mean, they're stuck between a rock and a hard place. But my answer to them is you need to start somewhere and you need to band together to drive behavior, right? So companies, from banks to construction companies, to insurance companies, all play a role because they have massive scale.
Great. So I actually got a question that's sort of tangential to that one from Malu Villafane. Her question is there a program to disseminate this culture, especially in the grassroots level? So we spoke about the role of companies, but like the grassroots level, how about smaller organizations? Like how can they start disseminating this information? Is there an effort to disseminate this cultural shift also at the grassroots level that you know of?
Yeah, you know, to be perfectly candid with you, our senior management team, maybe about 20 of us, spent hours upon hours debating every single word of that mission and purpose. And we only crystallized it finally to a point that we were happy with the words in July of this year, right? And we've since rolled it out to our employees. We haven't gone and rolled it out to our communities, but definitely we want to roll it out to the rest of the communities. And then we're very happy to partner. As I mentioned earlier, the issues that we face are too huge for the Lopez Group or EDC alone. So we'd like to partner. In fact, one of our largest competitors that's heavily invested in coal-fired power, I invited him to attend this call today. It's a way of sharing some of the regenerative thinking.
Wow, very cool. Oh, we actually have a question from Facebook from Nina Galang, also along this line of thinking, really. So can EDC form a consortium of regenerative companies? That's a pretty big question there. A consortium of regenerative companies to accelerate the movement. Is this a solution that we should look into?
Yes, Mrs. Galang, thank you for your question. This is definitely something that we're thinking of, and we'd like to push forward in the coming months and years. Basically, from 2010 to 2020, that was the decade of sustainability reporting. But given that it really hasn't moved the needle, we now move into regenerative thinking, and we'd like to be part of that journey together with as many entities as possible. So thank you for that suggestion and that challenge. We'll take you up on it.
Wonderful. Okay, so shifting gears a little bit here. So from what EDC is doing, what we can do on a personal level. So we have this question from June Villanueva, and I'm just gonna read it. It's a little bit long, so bear with me. So the question is, most developments come with a price, and most often the collateral damage is the environment. So how can regeneration, or being regenerative, apply to non-sustainable development or to an irreversible environmental disaster brought about by these developments?
Yeah, June, thanks for the question. Right, I'm not sure if there are environmental disasters that are irreversible. I was watching an interesting video the other day to research about the ability of the earth to recover after years and years of pesticide and chemical abuse, right? And the studies indicate that as in a time period as short as 3 months, some types of soil indicate that the chemicals were never even there. I mean, it just has such a great structure of life inside it that it can take care of its own, right? So I think the issue here is the thinking has always been you create damage and you repair. You hurt something and you fix it, no? I guess what we're saying here is if you hurt something or someone or the environment, do 10 times as much repairing, right? Elevate it, don't leave it just the same way. But actually make it better. Make it better. You always can make it better.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that is true. I mean, there are a lot of environmental disasters that have happened, and we don't know yet the scale of whether these are definitely irreversible, but that doesn't really matter, does it? I mean, we do have to start healing regardless of whether we believe it's irreversible or not. To that sort of thought as well. So we've seen several countries, or richer nations, so to speak, start exploring life outside of planet Earth as an alternative to maybe leaving the planet that we're currently in. Is this a thing that we should be looking at this point in time? Is this the next big forward, or in case sustainability fail and regeneration doesn't work?
Yeah, I'm not sort of qualified to talk about those kind of programs. I appreciate the question, but that's a possibility, and there are people who are at the cutting edge of thinking in that way. Foremost among them, I think, is Elon Musk. That's trying to look at colonizing space, not traveling to space and looking for places that we can colonize. But I'd rather not get distracted by that. Let the really bright genius engineers worry about that. I think back on Earth, with our own 2 feet planted on the ground, there is already so much we can do, right? In all the homes of the people on Facebook, if we collected all of the watermelon and calamansi and guyabano and melon seeds and dried them for 2 weeks and planted them or gave them away, even that would already generate food. I mean, there's just so much we can do closer to home.
Yeah, that is true. We should remain earthbound, so to speak. So, I mean, I had a question of my own, actually, and this pertains to accountability. So what do you believe is the role of accountability? What is the role of accountability in regenerative thinking? So does being regenerative also include holding ourselves accountable, but also other companies accountable who are responsible for greater amounts of emissions? So where is accountability in regenerative thinking?
Yeah, actually, Val, the accountability is the starting point, right? You realize the context that we're in, and I spoke very, very briefly about climate change. I can actually talk to you just about climate change for days on end. But that's the starting point. You have to realize the context that we're in and say, we own the problem. And the solution has to begin with us. Think of a car accident, right? Your car hits someone else's property. What happens? You end up paying for the damage. So in general, the world operates under this system, which we call a cost-or-pay system. If you cause the damage, then you pay. And following this logic, I think carbon emitters have to be held accountable at some point. You know, if I had the final say on the topic, I would actually levy a carbon tax. And I would collect all the proceeds from this tax and use it on programs for the poor, in particular, to spend for their resiliency and their health.
Sorry. Yeah, absolutely. I think we have a slew of questions that actually have to do with, well, one, the current, I guess, still being married to this idea of coal, at least in the country and other countries, and also like the shift to going renewable, to the shift to alternative energy. We had a question. I don't have the name of the person who asked this question. As far as you know, can renewable energy sustain the energy demand of the country now? So in this current state of the art, do we have enough renewable energy to sustain the country just on its own? Do we have enough of that?
Yeah. Let me answer you this way, which I'm gonna say with a lot of caution, right? If you look at one type of energy that everyone loves to talk about, right? It's solar, right?
Mm-hmm.
And solar is the sun strike on Earth, right? 88 minutes of sun strike. If we capture just 88 minutes of sun strike on the planet, we will have captured 470 what we call exajoules of energy. In 88 minutes, we can power the entire planet for 1 year, the entire Earth, right? If we assume, for example, that we had the technology to capture 112 hours of sunshine, that would capture what they call 36 zettajoules. No? There are more zeros in that than I am capable of counting, so I leave that to the engineers. And 36 zettajoules is all of the oil and gas reserves on the planet in 112 hours of sunshine, right? But the thing is, the sun doesn't shine always. The sun sets. So you need more than just solar. You need clean energy like geothermal to run during the day. At some point, you need to complement geothermal with solar, and solar with battery, and solar with a technology called natural gas. It's similar to coal in the sense that it's carbon-based, but it is very dissimilar to coal in that the carbon it emits is about 10%. So you burn a lump of coal, you get a certain amount of energy, and you are able to light up Makati Medical Hospital, right? If you take that amount of energy from coal and say, I'll stop using coal, set that aside, and you say, I'm going to run natural gas. Natural gas then runs. That same Makati Medical Hospital will run, but only causing about 1/10 of the damage. So it's there in front of us. The solutions are there in front of us. And coming down is the development of hydrogen, which will, I think, ultimately render most of coal completely and totally obsolete. So it's coming, but yes, we need to push it hard.
Yeah. Great. There's a follow-up question to that, actually. So you spoke about like all of these new and available technology. So Jim Ayala asks, like, new technology already enables us to use certain renewable resources. So instead of fossil fuels, instead of coal. But what are the main barriers that you have seen to the widespread use of renewable energy? And how long do you think will it take the Philippines to reach an irreversible tipping point? But I guess it's the first question first. So what are the main barriers to the adoption of renewable energy, like, well, hydrogen is up and coming, but natural gas and everything else?
Yeah, I think the starting point is always the level of knowledge, right? There's not enough awareness of the climate crisis that we're on. There's not enough awareness that the Philippines is the single most vulnerable country on earth. And there's not enough awareness that we can do something about it. That's the first, right? The second thing is what completely and totally irritates me. This is the height of lack of accountability. When those that generate from coal-fired power plants say, big deal if I stop generating coal from my power plant in the Philippines, what can that do? The others in China are still generating. The others in the US, in Europe, in Dubai, and Oman, all over the world, they're still generating. What will I do, right? What will I do? And my answer to that is you need to start, because you need to also have the moral high ground, because your people are the most vulnerable. I mean, how can we have the moral authority to bang our fist at the table on the United Nations as our people get more and more affected. If we open up our record books and say that we went from 40% renewable to 25, and we went from 50% coal to 75% coal. I mean, it's absolutely ludicrous. We are the most vulnerable. So if you're the weakest kid, don't you need to take the most vitamins? If you're the one that needs help, don't you need the most tutoring? Why should it be different in terms of pollution, right? We need to start somewhere, and we need to be the shining example. The problem is logic is twisted in a very short-sighted manner for clearly financial gains. No? I will not apologize for my passion because this is really a topic that results in me being upset. And to the gentleman who asked the question, Jim Ayala. Jim is actually a good friend and a fellow director in a publicly listed company, and I also sit in his solar foundation. I think, Jim, it's coming. Not too long ago, Munich Re, one of the largest insurance companies in the world, said that they will accelerate the cessation of their insuring coal-fired power plants. Before, they said it would happen 2030 or beyond, but they recently said they're going to stop insuring coal-fired power plants by 2021, 2022. So we need more and more like-minded companies to make the choice, because we do have a choice and we need to take a stance.
Yeah. So I think definitely just from your answers, there's so much, well, so to speak, power that private companies have. But also I think, so from, I guess, the policy and regulation perspective, do you think it would help to have maybe a legislation or regulation that maybe that gets passed that would push this along even further? So this question is from Jenny and Gino Bulan.
Right. Usually policies of the company are driven by either economics, what we do, economics, or the other one that drives it is legislated policy. In my short view is all of the above. If we can use regulation, if we could use policy, if we could use market forces, then everything should work in tandem. You know, it's going back to this solar technology, right? 5-6 years ago, the cost of a solar power plant, when it generates a kilowatt hour, right? 1,000 watts for 1 hour. So about 15 or 16 of the bulbs in your home. That used to cost about 10 pesos per kilowatt hour. Today it's down to 5, right? So the other thing that I want to highlight is our country is not blessed with a lot of oil and gas. Right? Whenever a country is formed by volcanic forces, which the Philippines is, we have many, many volcanoes and mountains from north to south. Typically, as the tectonic plates shift, it burns the remaining hydrocarbons within the different layers of the lithosphere. So what do? We have to play to our strengths, and we have to harness geothermal more and more. There is a lot out there. There is a lot out there, and it needs some policy support from government to get it going. It's super easy to take a coal-fired power plant and plunk it by the shore, because coal-fired power plants need cooling water. And the reality is all of these high voltage transmission lines pass by the shore, you know? But none of these transmission lines crisscross up in the hills. And that's a huge deterrent. So we need a policy, for example, to say government will build these lines. If the private sector finds more and more geothermal, we need a policy to say that government will take care of that, because of the many benefits to the community and to society of not generating from coal-fired power.
Yeah. Still staying within that line of questions. So, and I guess I'm just going to couch this in terms of policy as well. So do you think so we spoke about the barriers already to adopting this. What's it going to take, I suppose, I guess for a policy, from a policy standpoint, or to get over these hurdles? So this question is from Sireneo Matulak, because they asked, like, what about some of the hurdles, like, for instance, solar and wind, like intermittent supply, hydrogen, for hydrogen's problem with storage, plus the amount of energy it needs to produce solar panels and windmills. So what's in your mind, like what are the key things that need to get to sort of piece together to get over these hurdles?
Yep. I have a very simple answer. No, what you really need is a skilled integrator. Someone that controls the policy strings very effectively. So, for example, the Department of Energy can promote renewable energy, which it's doing, right? And when you have intermittent renewable energy that's not available 24/7, you support a policy of creating renewable energy, using renewable energy that's 24/7, right? And if that's not enough, what do you need? No? All over the country, you have over 1,000 megawatts of solar panels, right? All over the country. Even the roof of my own home has a significant amount of solar panels. When the sun doesn't shine, or when it's raining, or when the clouds pass, all of a sudden the power generation, my mini power plant or the solar around the country loses its generation capability. And at that moment in time, what needs to happen is what they call quick reaction power plants spring to action. And so far, the three best technologies for that are natural gas, because it ramps up in minutes, or sometimes even seconds if it's coming from a warm starting point. You also need hydro. So you have pump storage hydro that's stored up in the mountain. That's water, that's potential kinetic energy. The grid senses clouds passing by or a typhoon. All of a sudden, it needs to pick up where the supply went down, and you begin to release the water. So at night, you have a lot of excess energy from the thermal power plants that have to keep on running. They need to keep on running because if you shut them off every day, they're going to break down more frequently. So they have what's called the minimum stable load. So imagine you have a pump storage facility, so a hydropower plant. During the day, you pump the water up. At night, you run it down. So things like that. It's like a natural gas and pump storage and batteries are great complements to renewable energy, even intermittent renewable energy.
Okay, cool, great. So we have a question from Father Judy Partlow. So this speaks to your, I guess, geopower project in Negros Oriental. So shifting gears here a little bit. So he asks, like, how many more years of geopower in Negros Oriental to last? And is there any chance for EDC to collaborate with solar companies here?
Yeah. Thank you for the question, Father Paltrow. The geothermal resource we have in Negros Oriental, in Dumaguete, up 20 minutes away from Dumaguete Airport, is a very, very stable resource. So it's gonna last a really long time. We have not had to drill new wells in quite some time now. So it's pretty much operating at close to equilibrium. So that's great news. Unfortunately, what's happened in the island of Negros, which is both Negros Oriental and Negros Occidental, no, where Bacolod and Dumaguete are, that entire island has a very limited demand of about 320 megawatts. And in addition to 230 megawatts of geothermal, a lot of solar was built, right? Which the island really doesn't need. It's kind of a mismatch to what's happening now. And that's because there were lots of large family-owned farmlands that could easily be converted and used for solar. So solar requires large tracts of land, and it was convenient for the entrepreneurs around Bacolod City to build solar plants. There is an excess right now, Father, and my wish is that the development of solar in Bacolod stops. It really has more supply than it needs now for the next 10, 15 years. And probably, in fact, some of those solar plants, if they're sold, their new owners might want to dismantle and rearrange them in other islands that need the energy more, like in Samar or in down south in Mindanao. So I hope that answered Father's question.
Yeah, So sorry, it's not father, it's from. I'm so sorry for
Oh, okay.
that.
I
Okay,
just
I'm
made
so
it a more
sorry.
holy
All
man.
right. Yeah. So sorry about that. Okay. So we have a question from the consumer side. So how do we, so if we, let's say, so right now most of us I think are pretty much connected to Meralco, right? Like that's a, so do we have options to, let's say, hook up to something else? Like how, and how do we go about doing it?
Sorry, can you repeat the question, Meralco? Yeah.
So sorry. So right now, I think, so for, what about for energy consumers who want to maybe link to a more renewable source? I mean, what are our options?
Unfortunately, the options today for consumers is quite limited now. You do not have at the household level, you still do not have the power of choice. The energy industry restructuring or reform act, no, passed in 2006, mandated that at some point that the customers will have a choice down to your doorstep. So for those who have had the great fortune of traveling abroad, you would see stores and restaurants with stickers in the window saying powered 100% by renewable energy. I think that's going to come in the next few years. But while you can't choose the kind of energy that you use, you can already choose the products that you buy. And you research on the companies that are pushing very, very hard for renewable energy. Companies like Unilever, for example, are thought leaders in this space, right? So Unilever has a plan of going 100% renewable globally. And I used to work for the competitor who shall remain unnamed, but in the choice of shampoo, for example, or soap, you can make your voice heard. We have some customers that have called us, like Neltex Green Pipes. And Neltex called us and said, look, even if you're not necessarily cheapest because of our location and delivering with transmission costs all the way to our factories, we want to be 100% powered by renewable energy. And these are forward thinkers, right? And we have a bunch of customers, a few customers that we are very happy to partner with because today they believe it is the right thing to do. And be patient. If you have excess capital, you can use it for small scale solar in your rooftop. If not, then be patient because renewable energy is coming. And in the meantime, choose your suppliers wisely.
Yeah. So they just have to tap into that power of the consumer and making our voices heard by our purchases. And we do hold a lot of that power too. So, sorry, I've got several messages coming in right now. Okay. So we have a question from, I will butcher your name and I apologize, Rachel Ibanez. So she asks, so there is an urgent need for the country to create a circular economy as another concrete aspect of being regenerative. So we lack the necessary systems and infrastructures. And the government is in dire need of stakeholders or investors who would be generous enough to extend a hand to make this happen. Would you be willing to be one of the first partners in taking this tremendous challenge with us? So I guess on a personal level and as a company.
Yeah, thank you for the question, Ms. Rachel Ibanez. I think we're happy to partner in creating a more circular economy. I am actually the president of a nonprofit called Business for Sustainable Development. And that is one of the most intense pushes that we are making to head towards a circular economy. So that we're not disheartened and we're not frustrated. We just have to take small steps all the time, right? A lot of small steps. Sometimes it feels like we're attempting to boil the ocean. The policy is not there, the systems are not there. The Clean Air Act needs to be amended so that incineration will be allowed. And as you're incinerating, you're generating energy, part of a circular economy applied in countries all over the world. There's many, many things that we need to fix, right? But we need to do it one step at a time. And we just can't give up. We have to be resolute as we move forward in this direction. But yes, we'd be happy to partner. In the chat or in our Facebook, which I think will be shown at the end, please get in touch with us And we'd like to expand our partnerships in this dialogue.
Yeah. So we have a question. Next question is from Celeste Reyes. How do we address increasing food security challenges? So like agricultural displacement and biodiversity challenges as we promote renewable energies and build renewable energy infrastructures.
You know,
so I guess it's a team. Yeah, sorry, go ahead.
No, I just wanted to talk about food security, for a moment. This is one where oh my gosh, the problem is really we kind of have to boil the ocean. We passed a land bill that prevents large tracts of land from being consolidated, right? And when you look at our Land Reform Act, each individual is allowed to own 5 hectares of land. And this is in stark reaction, a solid pivot from the time that we were a colony, and lots of land were concentrated in a few hands, right? Then you look at countries like Taiwan and Japan, and they've created large cooperatives. They have massive scale. And when you look at the massive scale that they're enjoying, they have the equipment to generate agriculture at very competitive prices without any loss in productivity. In fact, they're a lot more productive. So this is the same as this is the same as trying to produce a car when you're a company with 200 people and without the aid of robotics, and trying to produce a car when you have KUKA robotics and thousands of employees in design and the assembly line. Our system of land ownership is has just committed us to being subscale for life, right? So how can you buy a tractor if all you're gonna till is a small piece of land, no? So there are many issues like that. And I think some of the solutions that are being undertaken now, which I saw in some parishes close by, where rather than giving charity or giving rice to the communities that are going hungry, they gave away seeds and trowels so that they can actually plant in their backyard or in the neighboring empty lots. We just have to drive towards a lot of self-sufficiency, recognizing that we are very subscale because of our Land Reform Act. I don't profess to know the answers, and I can't be critical of what's been done in the past. But I just think that it's tough, no? It's tough to produce an agricultural masterpiece if you're giving me a 3x3 square inch canvas.
Yeah. So also, I have a question from, sorry, just looking at the time here. So I have 2 final questions, actually. So one is from Nicole Barrett. What proportion of world leaders are ready for this sort of tectonic shift and traditional economy first mindset? So she's asking within the context of presidents and like the president, the CEO of EDC. So as far as you know, like, is there a greater proportion that are ready for this tectonic shift, as she says?
Yeah, back in the 80s, I used to work for a consumer goods company. And in that consumer goods company, we noticed the trend, right? Whenever a trend happens around the world, pushing for more sustainability, it starts in Europe, around Germany, Holland, Netherlands, Central to North Europe, propagates to the rest of Europe, and then to the West Coast and East Coast of the United States, and then to the rest of the world. At that time, the major environmental push, which was completely worth it, was to shift from synthetics to what they call cocoa fatty acids as the base for all detergents. And cocoa fatty acids biodegrade very rapidly and do not damage the oceans and streams and rivers, right? And the fish don't mutate because synthetic detergents, or syndets, we call them, are out. And I was in the middle of the transition then to cocoa fatty acids. And we had a terrible time. And I was running a brand called Mr. Clean, the Mr. Clean Barretta. And they would come out of the assembly line and be soft as goo. We had to learn. And I remember the beginning of the days, we said, this is hopeless. But eventually, we were able to perfect the temperature, and the production of the detergents. And for the past 35 years, we've been using detergents around the world that no longer harm the environment. So there is good news out there now. There is awakening. But to what percent of the world today this is happening, I can't pin the figure, but there are bright spots. So for example, Jacinta, the Prime Minister of New Zealand, in an act of regeneration, decided to cut her salary. She said this isn't gonna change what's happening to all the people who are unemployed. But this is about unity, that the entire executive branch is sharing with everyone who doesn't have a job. And imagine a leader of a country sending a powerful message like that to everyone who is unemployed. Brothers and sisters, we are one with you, right? So all over the world, right? If you just close your eyes and humor me for a moment with this imagery, all over the world, there's a dark cloud. It's black as night. And all you really need to do is around your house with 3 or 4 neighbors, be a small white bulb, right? With just a bright spark in that little area. You don't have to boil the ocean and light up the whole Luzon, right? All you have to do is your share. That's why in the song that our chairman said, I said it's a meaningful song because what does it say? All it takes is a million dreams, right? For the world we're gonna make. And we just have to keep at it, being regenerative one step at a time, and don't get disheartened by the fact that the ocean is so huge and we need to boil it, or in this case, I hope not cool it, cool it down a bit from global warming.
Yeah, that's actually that's a good way to end. That's a good point to end with right there. And I think we tend, I mean, for us who are aware, for most of us actually who are aware of the climate crisis, it is easy to get disheartened and you see the black cloud for sure. But yeah, you're absolutely right. There are bright sparks. It's just a matter of being able to focus on these bright sparks and build on them. So I do apologize for all the other questions that we have. We do have several more, but we can't get to them. We will try, so for those who provided their email addresses with their questions, we will try to address them within 48 hours after finishing this session. For those who still have other questions they want to ask, please send them through the email. So it's edc.seasonofcreation@gmail.com. So we will try to address them as much as we can within 48 to 72 hours of the completion of this session. So we do appreciate all of your feedback. We appreciate all of the comments, on all of the other questions that we've gotten. It's always a good sign in a webinar when you have such an engaged audience as we have today. So thank you so much, Sir Ricky. It's enlightening. It's enlightening for sure. And we have a monumental task before us, evidently. But if we pull together, obviously we can definitely do this. So thank you so much. We appreciate this so much. Yeah. So before we completely close our program, I'd just like to do a little bit of a synthesis of what we've talked about today. So today we've differentiated between sustainability and being regenerative. So as Sariki has said, sustainability is just about doing less harm. It's not about changing our patterns. It's not about it's about improving a current system, so it doesn't harm the environment as much. And obviously this is not enough because we're still not on a trajectory towards a 4 degrees Celsius temperature increase. We need to do more than do less harm. We need to heal. And to do that, we have to adopt becoming regenerative. So becoming regenerative is about creating and maintaining mutually beneficial relationships between nature and society. It is about being mindful that we are part of a big, highly diverse and nested world, and that we have our own unique and reciprocal role to play. And as Sariki has said and presented, everything we touch must be elevated. So when we try to heal the land, it must be we must elevate it. When we try to do everything, even in our own little ways, even in maybe our backyard garden, we must elevate the work that we do, not just for us, but with an awareness that we are part of a bigger system. And just to link that with this law of limits that we spoke about, and which is the theme for today, isn't this exactly what we are called to do as Christians? We are called to be in fraternity with nature. We are called to be stewards, not masters of this, not masters of the environment. We are not apart from nature, we are in nature. And to maintain this equilibrium, right, to maintain a balance, we have to see linkages among us as individuals, between us and our society and the rest of the human family, and between humanity and the earth. So how do we do this? How do we heal? How do we continue in a healthier relationship with each other and also with the earth that is our home? So as Sariki has shown us, so for companies, it's about looking at people and resources and recognizing that they have inherent value, that they too play a unique and reciprocal role. And this is what EDC has been trying to do and still trying to do until now. They've begun viewing business as more than just about profit. It's about people. It's about the places that they touch also with their business. And for us as individuals, this is about understanding that we have an individual impact, that we can do something, that even if we think that it's such a monumental task before us, we do have the power through what we buy or what we do in our own homes to make ourselves heard about what needs to be done. So again, climate change is not going to be solved overnight, and it's not going to be solved by one company alone or by one organization alone. It's a global problem that requires global solutions, and we have to start with looking and seeing that we are interconnected, like constellations that are drawn on the face of the earth. None of us can do this alone, but together we are more powerful to pull towards a better future, towards a future where we are all healthy and no one gets left behind. So just to conclude, really, I'd like to leave us all with these words from Pope Francis, where he said, "We received this world as an inheritance from past generations, but also as a loan from future generations to whom we will have to return it." So we have our task before us. We need to work together to remind each other that we are part of nature and to elevate everything we touch. Thank you so much for joining us this afternoon. Thank you, Sir Ricky. Thank you for GCCM and the Focolare movement for organizing all of this. Thank you to all of our participants. You've been wonderful today. You've all been, we got great questions. We got great comments too and insights from the chat. And we appreciate all of this for sure. And I hope for all of us, we've all learned something and we feel inspired rather than disheartened, to start being regenerative. So, sorry, excuse me. So if you want to learn more about EDC's projects, like Project Binhi and all of the projects that were spoken about earlier in Sariki's presentation, so you can follow them on the social medias. Please reach out. And also, if you know of any other regenerative projects, just feel free to share it as well. We need to pull together, as we said. And we need everybody on the same project and pulling together towards the same goal. So thank you so much. We appreciate it. We're about to end here. For those who are who arrived a little bit late, who want a copy of the who want a copy of the presentation and of the session today, it is available on GCCM's Facebook page after the stream ends. And of course, if you have more questions, we would love to still get your questions. Please send an email to edc.seasonofcreation@gmail.com. So again, it's edc.seasonofcreation@gmail.com. Sorry. Great, but that's it on our end, and we thank you so much for joining us today, and we hope to see you in the next events. And we hope you all keep in touch one way or another with the Focolare movement, the EDC, or GCCM. Thank you so much, and that's it.
Thank you. Thank you, Val. Thank you, everyone, for attending.
Wala na, end na.
Ha? Di ko man na?
Oo.